Hello and welcome to the Dogbus channel, the Dogbus.ES channel on YouTube and home to the largest fleet of dog buses in the world. This is Puppies. It's a 2019 Ford Transit-based Starcraft Prodigy LP childcare bus, and it's the first bus that I ever bought new. It comes from Indiana, the city of Elkhart, and it was my first ever business trip to go and pick up this bus. So I'll tell you why I bought this bus and more about the various mechanical problems that it's had and why puppies are indeed trouble. So this is actually the second bus that I bought, but the first new one. The first one that I bought was a 2010 Ford Econoline based bus that was a complete failure, basically. I had it for about a year by the time it fell apart. The reason for that being that I bought it as a used bus from upstate New York when it was about 10 years old, and any bus that has lived in New York is basically completely dead at that point, and I should have never bought it. I did manage to do better than that original Ford bus for a while in the form of two Ford Transit vans, like this one, but the actual van-based body. And those served well for a while, but they had some quality problems, particularly the sliding doors. The handles kept on breaking. But that was my biggest complaint with those, really. Other than that, the sliding door I found to be very unsafe for the purpose of loading and unloading dogs on a constant basis. There were just too many ways that they could potentially slip through the cracks or be hurt, and it just wasn't safe enough for my taste. Also, various vans like these, including the Mercedes Sprinter, just don't come with air conditioning that could possibly cut it when it comes to 20 dogs breathing heavily after a walk. In fact, no vehicle out there other than a bus like this has the type of air conditioner that can really do it. But at that time, I really couldn't actually afford to buy a new bus under my business, so I bought one personally by myself, and it was hard to figure out how to do that. Basically, what I had to do was go to a Ford dealer and convince them to buy this bus from Creative Bus Sales. And the mechanism by which they did that was a bit complex, but they basically had to do a swap with another dealership in Indiana that was based on the Ford Cutaway on which this is based. And then they somehow added in the financing for the remainder of the vehicle, and it was bought through a Ford dealer. Whatever happened, the guy who sold me this bus was fired not long afterward. So the story of Puppies begins in Elkhart, Indiana. It was my first ever business trip, and I was excited to go to the land of modified and otherwise specialized vehicles, which is the Midwest. As some of you may know, there's many fire trucks and RVs and the like which are manufactured in that area, which is where it was manufactured by the Starcraft Corporation, which is a subsidiary of a larger manufacturer called Forest River, which makes all sorts of things like RVs and the like. And unfortunately, which we might discuss later, Forest River recently bought the Collins Corporation. And you can watch some of my other videos about the differences between the different bus manufacturers and why I eventually adopted Collins instead of Starcraft. It was an incredible victory for me at the time to have made this purchase at all, and it took me years to figure out how to even make it happen. So I victoriously drove across through Cleveland, and I went out of my way to go to Buffalo to visit my cousin, who I'd never visited there before, and I met his soon-to-be wife. And I even took this bus back to Buffalo about a year later for their wedding, and it was the only time that I've ever had a significant number of passengers on this bus, when I took my cousin and his friends and our family down to the waterfront to do various activities for the wedding. And we had a great time. The honeymoon with this bus did not last long at all, though. It began to have problems pretty much immediately. And since then, I've pretty much been soured on Ford and Starcraft, both of whom I think share equal blame for the lack of quality of this particular bus. So to begin with, the moment I drove this bus off of the lot in Indiana, one of the switches for the right mirror just broke off. Now, seeing as I had to get back to New York, and I was very excited about this purchase, I wasn't about to just turn around and try and make them give me a different bus after all I had already been through. I just wanted to get out of there. So that was a sign for what would happen else otherwise as well. The mirror switch on this bus would be really the least of my problems. But because of the pandemic, that did take me a couple of years to actually eventually replace. The first thing that went wrong with this bus, though, was a full-on coolant leak and blowout. The bus went into limp mode and would have overheated if not for the computer. And this was within only a couple of months of its original purchase. Now, I took it to Ford, and at that time they did honor the warranty, but of course they blamed the upfitter for the location of the coolant leak. They said that the coolant was leaking from where the Ford systems meet with the customized systems, but then they somehow took responsibility for it. Now, that wouldn't be the first time that this bus had a blowout in that exact same spot. It's just not acceptable for a brand new vehicle. In addition to that, this bus has also had a complete failure of the alternator. And when that happened, they denied me warranty service. And not only that, they told me that because the air conditioning compressor is in the way of the alternator, they had to remove that, and that's somehow my fault that they designed the engine that way, and would therefore cost that much extra in labor to get the job done. This bus also eats through brakes like nobody's business at all. It has had 3 brake jobs already just at 30,000 miles. What you're seeing now is Amy coming outside, and she's on the phone, which means something is wrong. In fact, it's Jackie calling to say she can't get in touch with me, and our newest used bus has had a coolant blowout. At that point, I needed to get this bus to Riverdale as soon as possible. So that'll be the end of this video for now, and in our next video about this bus we can talk about repairs to the interior and the AC condenser, and we'll talk about this current coolant blowout in a video about that bus soon. Please like and subscribe so I know that you want to see more. Thanks.